Hi, today we're talking about the interest of using a dedicated cine lens for macrovideography. So let's dive into the review of this IRIX 150mm macro lens for video. So as you may know, I'm an ambassador for IRIX for macrophotography, and I've been using very successfully their beautiful 150mm macro lens for a while now. And IRIX has come up with a cine version of their lens, which is the same focal 150, basically the same optically, but built to be used in cinema cameras and for videography. And I've been using this lone lens for a while to try and see whether it was advantageous to use it for macro videography, which is my field of predilection. And so we're going to go into the pros and cons of using a dedicated cine lens for macro video versus using your classical photography lens. So first, what's the difference between a photo lens and the cine lens? Optically, these are the same. They have the same optical formula, as far as I know, and they have the same aperture. This is measured in f-stops, so physical aperture 2.8, maximum aperture. And this being a cine lens, the aperture is measured in transmitted light, so it's T 3.0, and it's exactly the same. It lets through the same amount of light as the other one. Aperture ring here is unclicked, which lets you see the difference in depth of field more easily than on the regular photo lens, which actually doesn't have an aperture ring, and you control aperture through the camera. Otherwise, here, the focus ring is, as we have seen before, a large rubber coated ring, which turns 270 degrees. And this is the same, except that it's geared. It's meant to be used with the follow focus, as we're going to see when I show you my rig. Okay? This lens is much larger. It's actually heavier, probably due to the casing, the construction with the rings and everything. The photo lens is 1 kilo exactly, where the cine lens is 1.3 kilos, so it's 30% heavier. And it feels when you have the lens, but it feels also very solid, very sturdy. It's not fitted with a tripod foot like this one. This one is an Arca foot. There's a little foot that comes here, but it's not Arca format. So you have to have this on a specific rig for photo and video. I'm going just to set up my rig here to show you how it's built, and we'll then look at the results. So this is the kind of setup you're going to be using if you want to do macro videography, because you need a lot of stability. I'm not going to detail all the parts because I'm going to do specific videos on macro video, and they will be coming up this summer. But just to show you roughly, the whole rig is mounted on a long plate. I was using so far a rail, but I've replaced that by a long plate for stability. The plate itself is attached to this Novoflex ball head, which I found very convenient because it can give me a lot of different orientations. I found it quite convenient for video, but you can also use a video head, a fluid head that works just as well and perhaps more stable. Okay, I have a Z6 Nikon here mounted in a cage, so I can attach a monitor, which I don't have here, so which makes it easier for focusing. As you can see, the cine lens has to be mounted on the rail system for stability because it's a very front heavy lens. I have here a lens support from Small Rig. It's all from Small Rig. I love the gear from Small Rig, very good quality, quite affordable. So I've got a couple of rods here mounted under the camera cage, and here this support to avoid the lens shaking and make it stable and not put too much strain on my camera mount too. Okay. For focusing, it's all manual in macro. I use the follow focus system also from Small Rig, which, as you can see, is mounted here on one of the rails, and the gear from the follow focus moves the focus ring here. That's super. It's one of the advantages of having a cine lens, is that you don't need anything else, a special adapter, and you can just focus manually using this so much better than focusing by hand. So could I have the same rig with my regular photo lens? Absolutely. I mean, there's no obstacle in mounting this on the cage and also mounting the photo focus. The problem is because this doesn't have a geared ring, you have to add a rubber ring here with the gear system, which you can then use with the photo focus. The problem is with the IRIX photo lens, there's this little bump here on the focus ring, which is great for manually focusing. But when you use the photo focus, it kind of bumps, when it arrives here, and it's not optimal. Okay, so I've done it. I've used this for macro video successfully. It's not a problem. It's less convenient than the geared system. Okay, so let's look at some videos I've done with this system. Finally, I've also tested this, although it's not made for that, but for photography, for macro photography. And the results were just exactly the same as the photo lens, the same optical quality, the same sharpness. This is a very, very good lens, which I absolutely love. So there's no difference, except if you hand hold it. Of course, it's much heavier, bulkier, and it's not as easy to get close to your subject or to, not shake when you have a little light. But otherwise, optically, there's absolutely no difference. The quality of the images is absolutely the same as the photo version. Bien, regarde, on va se mettre là. Voilà. Oh, le gros chat. Okay, I'm in my director's chairs with my assistant, who's not willing to stay. But what are the pros and cons of using a dedicated CINE lens for macrovideography? Well, first of all, the construction and the quality. This is an IRIX product. It's great as with all the lenses. The construction, the optical quality is fantastic. So you can expect absolutely the best results. Plus, this is a one in a class lens because I'm not aware of any 150 macro CINE lens from another brand, you know, at least at the time I'm speaking. So that's the pros. And the geared system, the ability to focus with the follow focus makes it much easier to follow the subject. In macro, it's very difficult to stay in the plane of focus. You need to use a follow focus. I mean, it's difficult to do otherwise, and that's a great advantage. So obviously, this is made for cine and video, and obviously, it works also for macro videography, and best option. Now the cons. The cons are, especially for someone like me, the bulk and weight of this lens. This is much bigger, much heavier than my regular photo lens, the 150 photo lens. And because I go to the field, I hike with my gear, I have to carry tripod, etc. I have to carry the video rig, which is heavier. And that's really a minus for this because it's so much heavier and bulkier, and it's more difficult to take it to the field. So if I go with my car and walk only, a short distance, that's perfectly fine. I can carry that. If I go on a long day, on a day hike, carrying all my gear, this is a bit heavy, and definitely the photo lens is the winner there because it's so much smaller and lighter. And the second thing is, if you want to invest in this, it's much more costly than the photo version. I think it's about twice the price, so it's not for everybody's budget. Personally, at the time being, I can't justify the expense. So I'm very, very glad that IRIX loaned me the lens. I want to thank them warmly. It's great collaboration with them. I love working with the brand. And I'm returning this lens tomorrow after I film this review. And at the time being, I'm going to settle with my photo lens and, adapt to its quirks for macro videography.